really you're putting you're putting your hands in the life of government, whether you live or die, what kind of medical care you can get, because you are not paying for it yourself. You don't make your own decisions. It's the decision of the collective. And now we've gotten to the point, as far as a culture of death, yeah, let's just let people die. Let's just let people kill themselves. And let's expand it to mental health. Think about that for a second. Someone who is out of their mind because they have a mental health disorder is more likely to kill themselves, by the way, in a situation that's temporary, right? You alleviate the mental disorder, often you alleviate the suicidal ideation. Instead, the solution there is, yeah, you can kill yourself. It really does mirror the trans issue quite a bit, doesn't it? It's, hey, I'm really conflicted here. I feel like I'm suffering from body dysmorphia. Sure, yeah, rather than address the mental health issues, let's cut off your penis or let's sew up your vagina. Thank God we're not on YouTube today. It really is remarkably consistent, which you have to appreciate. And in Canada, by the way, this is already being used, for example, on the homeless and other vulnerable groups. So now we've expanded to mental health. So let me give you a couple of examples. A 50-year-old man was afraid of becoming homeless, so he applied for MAID, basically to be offed. Right? He got one of two required doctor signatures for the approval, and then once he crowdfunded enough money, he retracted his application, his request. Think about that. This is the problem with suicide. It's a temporary it's a permanent problem to a temporary solution. You've heard that. Generally, cliches are useless. That's one that's incredibly true. In this case, the guy just needs a little bit more money. Yeah. Hey, in another case, maybe the guy needs a friend, mental illness. Maybe the guy needs someone who will hear his problem. Maybe the guy just had, his family members or his children killed in a car crash and he's depressed. Maybe there might be some kind of prescription that could help him. Maybe he needs some diet and exercise. Do you really think you're going to have doctors examining all of these issues before they sign off on assisted suicide? No, they're not. That's why you end up with over 4% of the population offing themselves at the hands of government.
That's insane to me. I think, didn't we cover that guy's story, the homeless guy?
Yeah.
Or the guy
that guy was afraid of becoming homeless.
So who's this one doctor that's like, I hate homeless people?
Yeah, you should kill yourself like that.
Well, you think you might become homeless eventually?
Gross. Ugh, not on my streets.
Maypad.
Yeah.
So
you have to get the doctor signature. You have to wait 90 days to get the second doctor signature. He crowdfunded enough money in that 90-day window. If he had not crowdfunded enough, it's likely that he would have gotten the second signature and potentially gone through with it.
Right.
Like, that's just insane to me that you would allow a program like that, especially when we've talked about people who have some kind of depression or mental illness and not allowing them to make everyday decisions for themselves, much less the decision to kill themselves.
Sure.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Also, you don't need a government program for this. That's also, you are putting a stamp of approval on the culture of suicide. I mean, a bullet is cheap, a cliff is free.
Right, yeah.
It probably does cost a lot of money to do the program.
Whether you agree with suicide ethically or not, look, you don't need government intervention at that point. But this is because they want you to know that this is their culture, this is their ism. And this is why when people say, oh, ideology is a framework for the weak, no, you don't replace an evil ideology with no ideology, where I just take everything on an issue-by-issue basis. Well, how's that working out with people like Hamas or ISIS? How's it working out in places like Canada? You have to fill that back into something. Ideally something productive, ideally something that centers around a culture of life. Basically, where we find ourselves now, and we discussed this in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, people would say, oh, come on, that's a canard. That this is being offered as an alternative to basic healthcare. Why? Because they have a strained healthcare system in Canada, despite what leftists try to tell you about socialized healthcare. And by the way, here's the newest ad circulating, which I think is in poor taste, on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC.
If you get the opportunity, you should kill yourself.
Is life getting you down? Call the number on your screen. You can do it, but so can we. We're here to help.
I still take it over the commercials for pocket catheters.
You can do it, but so can we. That's the best line ever.
I want to go back to this, too, because everyone made fun of any conservative who said, well, you know what, you'll be dealing with things like death penalties. Now, that was a term to mean you will be seated in front of a governing body from public servants.
They got an emperor.
Yes, exactly.
Nope. But it's just hemorrhoids.
I hate them. And homeless? No.
Gross. Bring in the maids.
Ew.
Yeah, bring them in.
Bring them in. All of them. The uglier, the better.
So just good.
Did you just stop yourself?
I did.
Come on, hit it, Yakuza. You know you want to. Go.
Shut up!
We discussed these back then, and the left tried to glob onto the idea of death panels, saying, actually, Snopes or PolitiFact, fact check. The government has not proposed an official arm titled death panels. So that's not what we were saying, but in case you've forgotten, time machine, death panels, and them mocking conservatives as though that would never happen.
In a healthcare debate that's grown increasingly contentious, perhaps nothing has drawn as much controversy as the so-called death panels.
There are no so-called death panels.
Is he a liar?
He is not lying in that those two words will not be found in any of those thousands of pages of different variations of the healthcare bill. No, death panel isn't there. But he's incorrect, and he is disingenuous.
There are no death panels.
Death panels is pure demagoguery.
So I walk in, give her a kiss. He said, "Joey, what about these death panels?" And I said, "Mom, I'm trying to kill you."
Another thing he couldn't accomplish.
And I'll give you a few examples here of some stories in Canada, and then I'll give you some personal examples of family members who you can't necessarily know. But we can look at the actuary tables. We can look at the statistics regarding survival rates of serious disease. And I had family members who, if they'd have gotten care in the United States, very likely could have lived, at the very least, extended their life. At bare minimum, I should say, increased their quality of life for the last years that they had. So let's go to an example here. No death panels, January 2023. There was this woman, Alison Duclouseau. She was Canadian, diagnosed with a rare form of aggressive cancer. She was told by Canadian healthcare that she wasn't a candidate for surgery.
A lifespan of what looks like to be 2 months to 2 years.
She says the surgeon told her she was not a candidate for surgery, and chemotherapy would not be effective either. The advice?
Talk to your family, get your affairs in order, which was indicating, whether you want to have medically assisted dying or not.
So here's what happens. They say there aren't death panels, but there's a very lengthy process. Picture the DMV with terminal cancer.
Yeah.
So they told her that you'll have to get a consult with a Canadian surgeon. That wouldn't be until 60 days after she had been told that she had 2 months to 2 years to live. So you have to wait up until day one of potential life expectancy. She traveled to Baltimore for surgery. There's a doctor there who performs, I believe, surgery 2 times a week.
Well, this particular surgery, so it's not extremely rare. This guy does it twice a week.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, this doctor performs surgery twice a week. That's
this
a special.
Is one doctor.
I also, by the way, I had an aunt who this exact situation happened. She was diagnosed with lung cancer. Took her a long time to go in and get diagnosed. And then it was stage 4 at that point, and then it was I don't remember if it was 4 weeks, if it was 6 weeks, for a follow-up to determine the course of treatment. I don't know if you know this, but when you're at stage 4, any type of cancer, certainly fast-growing cancers, every minute there is precious. It seems like an eternity. Now, I'm not saying that she would have survived here, but hey, if it hadn't taken that long to get in and to be seen, would it have been stage 4? Hey, if it was, let's say, stage 3, and she didn't have to wait another 6 weeks, could they start on treatment more quickly, more aggressively? I know that here in the States, many people who've had what would be typically death sentences. I know a guy with pancreatic cancer still alive.
Yeah.
You know what? Hey, we treat our dogs better here than they treat human beings in Canada. Hopper, the dog that precedes Joe Louis, we put him in CHOP therapy and it extended his life by another, I think, 14 months.
Yeah.
Have any of you had that experience here with cancer or a terminal diagnosis, or even with a human or with a pet? Point is, that's not an option in Canada. The government tells you no. And then what's the cavalry coming over the hill? You hope that they're American doctors or a plane ticket. Let's go to February 2nd in 2022. This is somebody who...
Same lady.
This is the same lady? This is the same story. She received treatment in America 35 days after the stage 4 diagnosis.
Less than a month and nearly $200,000 later, Duclouseau made the trip to the Mercy Medical Center in Baltimore. Hyperthermic intraperitoneal chemotherapy, or HIPAC.
$200,000.
$200,000.
Yeah. But in Canada, let me just clarify something. You'll know the answer to this because you did this super viral video a long time ago about Canada's healthcare system. If she wanted to get treatment in Canada, period, if they were like, hey, we're not going to cover it.
Yeah.
People in the United States were like, all right, you go out and you pay for it yourself.
Yeah.
Have that option really in Canada?
So we didn't when I was in Quebec, at least. Yeah. As a matter of fact, there's a Supreme Court case, Shoei versus Quebec. This is a doctor who people would be put into these waiting lines where they were going to die.
Yeah.
And he was actually performing some multitude of treatments. It was private practice. People were willing to pay. He was willing to see them. He was shut down. There was a Supreme Court case in Quebec where they said, actually, it's a violation of basic fundamental human rights, not civil rights, human rights to not allow a person to pay out of pocket to save their own life. And that opened up what we now would consider kind of a two-tiered system where they have super hospitals in Quebec, or as we know them in the States, hospitals, where you can pay clinics for care. And of course, only the super wealthy can afford them. So Canada, this $200,000, of course, would not reimburse this woman for her surgery, saying that the services you chose to receive in the U.S. would not have been the recommended treatment for your cancer diagnosis, meaning here in Canada, where their diagnosis was if you'd rather die, then you'd better do it.
Yeah. A MAID brochure.
Yes.
Was their course of treatment.
Exactly. And here's actually Allison's diagnosis of Canadian healthcare.
Universal healthcare really doesn't exist. My experience is do-it-yourself healthcare and go find your healthcare.
Yep. And let me ask, have you ever had people try and still convince you that universal healthcare, like in Europe or like Canada, is a good option here? Seems that's gone away a little bit. We do have problems here. We absolutely do, because we have kind of a system that's a hybrid. It doesn't work. Yeah. There isn't enough of a relationship between patients and doctors. Insurance companies step in where they're not allowed to tell you the cash price if they know that you have insurance. There are a lot of problems. However, all that being said, if you have a terminal illness, the single largest contributing statistical factor and the likelihood of you continuing to breathe air is, do you live in the United States? I know you'll say, rich, poor, white, black, you are better in the United States, period, than Canada or our European counterparts. Your best shot at surviving cancer, for example, is here in the United States. It's not even close. We outrank Canada, UK on all major cancer survival rates. Most Europeans wait at least a month to see a specialist, just to give you an idea. So in the U.S., it's about 27%. Norway, 61%. Sweden, 52%. We rank first in medical science technology. Right? 8 of the top 10 medical universities are in the United States. Our drug prices here subsidize all of Europe. So they can get some things cheaply and perform it poorly, but they wouldn't be able to do it if not for the United States. And that's with us having a broken system that does need reform. So I just want to be clear about this. I hope that you understand why we are looking at assisted suicide. It is an alternative to the shitty healthcare that the left wants you to implement here in the United States.
Yeah, and it's a direct extension of those kind of death panels that we talked about. People sitting there and going, you know what? The healthcare system that you have chosen to live under is terrible for a lot of things, but mostly when you need it most. That's not what you need.
If you search it later, I believe it's Slate or Salon. I believe Ginger Snap found this.
Oh, yeah.
They said
I think it's Slate.
Death panels are real, and that's a good thing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, they change it later on. It's like, no, this is what they do. Deny. And like, well, hold on a second, but there are death panels, but it's not what you're saying. And they say, okay, well, there are death panels, and that's a good thing. And then the next step is, well, hold on a second, we actually should just kill people if they're homeless or mentally ill. That's the sequence. Nearly all the time. No, hold on a second. Abortion is incredibly rare. I think abortion is terrible, but it needs to be safe, legal, and rare. That's, well, hold on a second. It's her body, her choice. And then it's, hold on a second. You have no say in whether it's viable or not. And then it goes to, you know what? Let's keep the baby comfortable. It survives an abortion in some kind of a rubber room and let it die. That's where we end up. It's deny reality, gaslight you, then change the game, and then say, well, yeah, but what's wrong with you in not supporting this? And that's how you find yourself at the impasse of 4% of Canada.
Yeah,
being killed through suicide.
We have the Slate article, by the way.
Yeah, do you have it?
Pull it up right there.
Canada has death panels, and that's a good thing.
It's that from 2013.
Yep. And John Oliver uses them as a source, unironically.
Very good.
And you've known about, by the way, Jill, the MAID problem in Canada for a while.
I mean, I think I heard about it from, somebody somewhere.
Is that...
Yeah, come on in.
Thank you. I was wondering if there was a time when my
Would you maybe say depressed?
Maybe a little, yeah. It's very acceptable.
That sounds like a mental disorder to me, Sam. Hold on. I have just the thing for you. Here you go.
What is this?
It's a plane ticket to Canada, my friend. You're going to get the best health care possible. Go ahead. Have fun, buddy. Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey, Gary.
Sure. Thanks for the time.
Oh, I appreciate that. Hey, you like to travel, don't you, Gary?
He's like Mr. Nice Guy, but he's Mr. Eugenics over here.
Well, you can't drink gay.
Yes, you can.
Tell us
That's a sound
put a few volts through George Santos, he'd be straight as an arrow.
You got a brochure for you.
Yes. It's Mike Pence's School for the Really Gay and Gross.
Ugh. Mike Pence just touches you.
Yes.
And you can't move.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
You flinch, you don't.
We're children. Hey. Hey, beautiful differences, by the way. Boys and girls are different. This is something we talk about quite a bit. You sign up for Mug Club between now and Christmas, you get it free. Once they're gone, they're gone. There's no other way to get it. Love letter to my children, and so, we decided, what do we want to do with it? We wanted to e-book it. You guys get it if you sign up between now and Christmas. I guess you get it 2 weeks before Christmas or ship.
Something like that, yeah. We'll let you know the last day that we think we can get it to you if you sign up by that day.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah,
Okay.
well,
Yeah, I read it last week.
it's not a troll book like, oh, hey, trans is stupid. No, it's a book that I wanted to write something that if someone had done it 10 years ago, no one would have thought twice. But now it's like, what?
Yeah, and let us know, too, if you guys want us to do that debate stream. We'll go back to that.
Yes, let us know. You can comment there below. At a certain point, it feels redundant. That's why we thought the debate with Newsom and DeSantis kind of was worthwhile because it allowed us a clear fact-checking. There are just too many people on the stage. So Christie didn't qualify, so that's fun.
He didn't?
I thought that I had read that.
Really?
That he didn't qualify. No? Maybe I'm
He
wrong.
wasn't qualified. I
not.
I don't know when the cutoff date is, but
Yeah, I don't.
Well, it's the weight limit more
Yeah, exactly.
than anything else.
Well, they have to bring him to the Cincinnati Zoo for the scale. It's like like a dynamometer they use at a giant butcher shop. They just hang him in the basket. You know what? Take off your shoes, Christy. Maybe we'll be able to do it. You're over the limit. No.
they got to take him to a truck stop. Wait, stations.
Cut weight next to newspapers. All right, let's go on to the left. Their double standard here on rape. Talking. This is something that just kind of dawned on me yesterday, and obviously I'm sure you've read some of the articles now of with Hamas and Israel and the rapes, sort of ritualistic or I guess wartime rapes, as they're encouraged to do by their religion of peace, Hamas. And we hear a lot about, hey, innocent people are being killed on both sides, and I think it's important to differentiate, obviously, between collateral damage and the deliberate targeting of innocent civilians. We've tried to run some searches, and we'll get to this in a second. When have you even heard Hamas try and claim that the Jews are raping Muslim women in war? You hear them say, hey, look at these kids who are killed by this bomb, and you use them as human shields. You really haven't. I haven't seen any, and if you do, it's very, very infrequent in comparison to the reports immediately after October 7th and continuing all throughout. So, and we sort of want to get into why, because this is something that happens. It's not just here with Hamas. It's ISIS. It's the Taliban. It's Al-Qaeda. You see rape across the Islamic world during times that you do not see anywhere else. And this has been going on for a very long time, by the way. So, yesterday, Democrat representative, I don't like
Democrat.
Pramila Jayapal?
Something like that.
Do you have a news update for me?
No.
Did Christie qualify? Was I wrong?
Oh, actually, Christie is confident he will qualify. He has not yet qualified.
Okay, he has not yet qualified.
Yeah, you were right.
He's confident about a lot of things.
Yeah, he's confident about a lot of things.
He thought that bridge thing would work out.
Yes. Well, no one planned for him to use it for his daily commute.
Don't show him Canadian healthcare.
So
made.
They wouldn't even do it. They wouldn't even. They just fake him out and play like a sound machine in the MRI.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, we're not going to waste this.
Start talking. I feel, sir, have you heard of MAID?
Yes.
Haven't even told you what's wrong. We know.
Yes.
Can't even afford all the chemicals it would take to kill this horse.
Need a triple dose.
Yeah. Can't qualify for the debate or for assisted suicide.
Well, Joe Rogan recommended medicine exclusively used for prescription. All right. Democrat Representative Pramila Jayapal tried to equivocate, and there's been a lot of this, the Hamas rapes of Israeli civilians, to Israel's response to Gaza?
Morally, I think we cannot say that one war crime deserves another. That is not what international humanitarian law says.
But you don't see Israeli soldiers raping.
Well, Dana, I think we're not. I don't want this to be the hierarchy of oppressions. I mean, 15,000 people have been killed.
And Dana Bash is also looking weird, but Jayapal there is just, I don't know if it's a prerequisite for CNN. It's just, look, let's go, that brings us to this, CNN's weird faces. Yeah, bring her back up. And this is, of course, what she looks like in the Muppet Christmas Carol when the baby Muppets were singing and then one got hit in the face with a frying pan.
She looks like the Trade Federation guys from the Star Wars movies that are really bad.
Yes, she does. You know?
That's like Gumby's face on a human body.
Yeah, she looks like that moon when it gets hit in the eye with the rocket ship.
You know, she looks like, hey, you guys.
Yes.
No, it's the moon from California Raisins.
Yes,
I love that.
Or she looks like a DEI Easter Island statue,
like a retarded totem pole.
Yes,
a gay retarded totem.
She's
pole.
a walking broken 23andMe.
What chromosomes?
It's like I don't know. She's not bad looking. She's just weird looking. That's been weird. That's been this week's weird faces. And it's not only mentally challenged totem pole who refuses to flat out condemn Hamas. Going on to other weird, we have Whoopi Goldberg here on the View Hot Topics. They couldn't be less hot.
No, they're not.
Or hot takes. It's like, tepid takes. It's been sitting on the counter too long takes.
But they get paid a lot.
They do get paid a lot of money, even though nobody watched them. So Whoopi Goldberg said the quiet part out loud in that she said, well, maybe hold on a second, pressing Hamas on sexual violence, it may make them mad, so it might be something to avoid.
The United Nations Entity for Gender Equality and Women Empowerment has been silent. The UN Committee on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women has been silent. And the international Me Too movement has been silent.
Perhaps the reason they've been silenced is for the same reason that you just described. They don't want to exacerbate. Well, they don't want to exacerbate. Listen, I know that this is really hard for people to sit still with.
I wonder why.
What's worse, rape by Hamas or consensual sex with Whoopi Goldberg?
No.
At least Hamas will kill you after. I wouldn't It's Saturday. I have all morning free. We can do coffee, breakfast, and bed. Where's Maid?
Make me the ghost, please.
I promise I won't come back and haunt you. Ever.
Dennis Rodman went from Carmen Electra to that. I don't know. You know what? That is a man where he's not a vain man. So I kind of respect him.
They say it's an instrument of war. They say that's what the one lady was saying. It's an instrument of war that they're using.
Yeah.
Israelis aren't doing that.
No.
There's no other person in war. There's no one in Israel that's doing their attacks or drone strikes, whatever, and then orgasming.
Right.
Fair.
You know what I mean? Like that's
I mean, I don't know about the drones. I don't know when they develop sentience, but it could be. I don't know what it would look like. I saw iRobot. So this also goes to, by the way, the UN didn't even condemn Hamas for raping Israeli women until this weekend. And here was a deputy director, and this is why when people say ideology, that's the theme today. Oh, ideology is a mindset for the weak. I don't have any. I take issues on an individual basis. Now, look, of course, you need to take the facts into account first and foremost on every issue individually. But to say that you can replace, for example, an evil ideology with no ideology is silly. You guys all look. I read Hitchens too. Okay, great, Dawkins. I understand. But you can't combat evil ideas that are being held, that are deeply believed by a group of people who've been brainwashed into evil with, and by the way, there is no truth. It's all kind of or whatever. You can't do that. That is silly. To me, you're the ignorant one. Not saying that you even have to believe in God, but you have to understand that these people do follow an evil ideology. That's why they're raping in record numbers. You can go all the way back to any Islamic empire that's ever existed, just to be clear. Here was a deputy director of the UN. At one point, Sarah Hendricks dancing around. I guess it was UN Women, so it's like the WNBA of UN.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, I just want to be clear. She's just sort of tiptoeing around the topic of rape.
Is there a reason, though, Sarah, that you can't specifically call out Hamas? It's not just condemning sexual violence against women and in any war in general. It's specifically what occurred on October 7th, perpetrated by Hamas.
Indeed. UN Women always supports impartial, independent investigations into any serious allegations of gender-based or sexual violence.
Indeed.
Really? And look, I love the reporter actually pressing, because the answer that we clipped out, basically just to give you a flavor of what was going on, was like, yeah, in any situation that happens to, I don't know of any specific ones, but in any, we would always be against it.
Yeah. Well, how about historical? How about contemporary? And how about anecdotal? How about all of that? Historical, empirical, and anecdotal. Indeed.
Yes.
Like a bitch Dickens.
Yes, like less than 2 months ago. How about that October 7th thing that we have video?
Yeah. And every day thereafter.
Yeah.
It's gotten to the point where even people who are consistently left are speaking out. So, Gal Gadot, actress, I'm using that term loosely, she wrote on her Instagram, "We claim to stand against rape, violence against women. We will not let women be victimized and then silenced. Yet 2 months later, women are still hostage to these rapists, and the world has failed to call this situation what it is, an urgent emergency that demands a decisive response." There have been new accounts of rape, sexual abuse from Hamas. They've come out over the weekend. There was a man who recalled, the music festival that he survived. He hid under some bodies.
Yeah.
And he said, anyway, you guys can go and read it. It's at the New York Post. It's disturbing. And of course, there are a bunch of keyboard warriors going, I wouldn't, like Marky Mark. Well, if I was there, it wouldn't have gone down like that.
Right.
He didn't do anything about it. What are you going to do against 12 armed Hamasmen who are, I don't even know how to term, Hamasmen, who are raping and killing women and laughing about it?
But he fought Megatron.
He did, yeah.
I didn't watch
I don't know.
Transformers. I don't know. That wasn't me. It was Bumblebee, okay? It's a robot. Well, I have human hands.
The quotes from these people, about what happened,
it's terrible.
It's just horrifying, screaming, stop, why don't you just kill me?
Yeah.
And then they end up killing this person afterwards, seeing gunshot wounds to breasts and to private parts, seeing broken hips or clavicle, whatever, not clavicle, sorry, but the just the kind of horrific things that you obviously understand about war, but this is not that.
No, this is not.
No, they're taking pleasure in it.
Yes,
absolutely.
They're taking the most disgusting, disturbing pleasure in it.
And it's very hard for people here in the West to understand this level of evil, where you think, that only exists in the cartoons, that only exists in Bond films. No, it exists in real life, and it is always inspired by evil ideology. It always is. If someone isn't directly inspired by an evil ideology, they will then use the evil ideology to excuse their evil. But it's always involved. There's always an ideology involved. And a lot of people will now. Speaking about this, so, Doc, I want to make sure I get this right. Dr. Dvora Bowman of Hadassah Hospital said of all these sexual assaults that I've been in the field for over 20 years. I've never heard of or seen such horrific things. Let's also compare what you're not hearing. Hamas versus the IDF. We've looked, we've searched, so even just using the same standard on Google, there are 0 reports of IDF soldiers raping Gazan women in the news right now.
If there was an example of it, you would hear it, because what we hear right now is 15,000 people killed, 2/3 of them women and children. They're using every single ploy. I don't even know if that number is true on the top end or if the 2/3 is right.
Yes, and here's something else that is something that is irrefutable. Certainly the IDF has not claimed credit for rapes, as Hamas did with their own accounts and sending videos of them to the family members on social media, just to be clear. Where are we getting this from? Hamas themselves. Oh, not all Hamas. One bad gang rapist doesn't spoil the bunch. I would say it does. I would say it does when it's repeated and they actually post this to their own profiles. You have never once seen... In other words, we can't make the claim that there's not a single IDF soldier who has ever raped a Palestinian.
Right.
Can't make that claim. It certainly doesn't seem to be commensurate, but we absolutely can tell you that no IDF soldiers or official accounts have claimed credit for rape or child murder or decapitations. That has happened with Hamas. Yeah. And where does this come from? This is why ideology does matter. Well, look, some people say there are different sects of Islam. I understand that. Obviously, they're sort of the equivalent to different denominations. But historically, there have always been rapes from Islamic empires that were encroaching. I mean, if you want to ask yourself, how did Vlad the Impaler happen? Okay, look into his childhood. Look into what he witnessed. Look into what he was fighting against. You can go through this, whether you're going Turks, Ottomans, you can go through, for crying out loud, even if you go back to World War I. And not long after that, people often gloss over the Armenian genocide. They don't necessarily know what that is. The treatment of non-Muslims is very, very different in Islam. Right. And yes, that extends to the rape of female captors. So let me read you a few verses, and thank God we're not on YouTube here today.
Yeah,
all the references are available. So Surah 424 specifically outlines the rape of married female captives. It says, also forbidden are married women except female captives in your possession. Let's move on down to Surah 23, 1 through 6. It says, triumphant indeed are the believers who restrain their carnal desires except with their spouses and slave girls. And what do we have here next, too, is Gerald, I want to make sure that I get this right, from Haaretz.
Yeah, they're reporting that the Arab world is pushing Israel to destroy Hamas. So, Hamas doesn't have any friends, basically anywhere, right? Nobody wants them. Now, they want them to be a thorn in Israel's side, but nobody wants them. And before we move on to that really quickly, I just want to go back to that. A lot of people right now will go, you know what, I can pull up verses in the Quran that say that you're not supposed to rape. Yes, there are verses in there that say that that is a horrific sexual crime. Right. It's for another married woman. You're not supposed to rape another man's wife.
If they're Muslim.
Because it's
Muslim,
disrespect to the man.
But, exactly,
if they're Muslim.
Exactly. But if
true.
it's a captive, you can do that. And there's even a part where Muhammad gets involved in this conversation where they come to him and say, hey, is it okay if we do this? Because here's what we're doing. We're raping them. We're pulling out before we climax, so there won't be any kids born. And he basically is like, you don't have to worry about that.
Yep.
I'm not even kidding. You can go and look it up for yourself.
Yes.
It's you just search rape hadith, and you'll find that. It's kind of termed the rape hadith. Mm-hmm. It's there. We're not making this stuff up. It's there.
And Islamic armies for a long time have been involved in what they call rape conversion, which is raping a woman until she converts, and if she doesn't convert, they kill her, kill the husband. Right? ISIS, I believe, it was either 10 or 12. They believed that if 10 men raped a non-believer, that she would become a believer. So this is what they would do in practice. Now, you can say that that's propaganda. That isn't a direct quote, for example, from Quran or Hadith, but it's not that much of a stretch when you see Muhammad's own words. Yeah, sure, as long as you pull out. Yeah, you can rape the captors. This is very different, too, is there are two prescriptions. There is no just love your enemy. They'll kind of say it, but it's, hold on a second. There are human beings, there are Muslims, and then there's everyone else who is not. If they have been given the chance to convert, of course, the tip of a sword, and they have not converted, now all of this is permissible. So they'll often quote from the left column and not the right column. We're not supposed to rape. We're not supposed to kill innocent people. We're not supposed to harm children. We're not even supposed to harm the trees. Great, understand. Now let's go to the right-hand column here. So does that all apply to people who have rejected Islam and their prophet, Muhammad? No, it doesn't. There's two sets of rules. That is not the case if you're looking at, even if you believe that they are fictitious characters. And by the way, of course, I don't believe that Christ is a fictitious. He's every bit a historical figure, just as Muhammad was. Muhammad, of course, has more contemporaries who wrote about him because of the wars that he waged. So there tends to be a lot more writing on those fronts. So he's very written about. There's no doubt that Muhammad lived. There's no doubt that he waged war. There's no doubt that he called for the deaths of Christians and Jews. There's no doubt that he condoned rape. He condemned rape of Islamic women if they were married, and condoned rape if women refused to convert and if they were captives. And by the way, any army you beat, all of these women are captives, to be clear. It's not like this is a slave who you've had for a very long time. Not that would make it acceptable, but I know people will try and take some verses out of context from the Bible. No, there are two prescriptions in Islam. These come from Muhammad. If they're Muslim, this is impermissible. If they have not converted at the tip of a sword, all of this is not only permissible, it is encouraged, and let me tell you how to do it. And this is why you see a lot of the other members of the Arab world right now are basically behind the scenes saying, Israel, keep going. They don't want the byproduct of Hamas, the people who elected Hamas. Here we have this from Haaretz. You guys can pull this up, or you can check the references. We'll have the link in the description. It says, publicly, some of them, like Egypt and Jordan, are falling in line with public opinion in their countries and condemning the civilian deaths caused by Israel's military response. But behind the scenes, almost every leader in the region, including in most of the Gulf states, is urging Israel to end the war only after Hamas is defeated, since they view the organization as a dangerous domestic.
They want Hamas destroyed.
Could be a good time to come together.
You would think so.
Yeah, but they do it publicly. None of this behind-the-scenes crap. I know that they would have problems with their people if they come out and say that, but still, it's at what point do you go, those are the bad guys? Right? You can never get I get like you're putting your life in danger because you call balls and strikes on who evil people are that go and rape festival goers, parade bodies through town, break women's legs, and throw them in the back of pickup trucks. Like there's no virtue in this, none whatsoever. And Israel's response, if it had been like for like, would have been horrific, and the world would have condemned Israel flatly. Yeah. The UN would have been out there immediately with a resolution. Not that that means anything, because the UN is a toothless, terrible organization that needs to go away and die like everything else. They would have come out en masse to do that, but they wouldn't have mentioned Hamas. They wouldn't have mentioned them at all. It would just be Israel did this, and I can't believe it.
Well, Josh, if someone who's obviously the only one here who's actually, fought in war, and by the way, thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Everyone, thanks. You guys know in chat. When they say there needs to be, a proportionate response, that's also kind of a silly thing to say in war, because a proportionate response would be Israel invading a private festival in Gaza and gang raping their women and murdering their children, right? So the death toll, the number isn't what we're talking about. That would be a proportional response as far as intent. So I don't know what it means when they say the response has to be proportional when you're talking about terror. Does that mean that we could only kill 3,000-something hundred people after 9/11?
It's an immature way to look at it.
Yeah,
it's definitely it's not immature, but it's an ignorant way to look at it. Proportionate. We're going to stop.
Yeah,
we're going to stop now because there's some what's it called, collateral damage.
Yeah.
Well, but the difference between collateral damage and raping someone is that wasn't collateral. That was intent.
Yes.
It's like the intent is different. The proportional response is dependent on the intent.
But even getting rid of that, when you were at war, let's say someone attacked your base, or they weren't necessarily successful, but you understood they were still a danger. Was the first like, hey, make sure it's proportionate response. Since none of you died, none of them died, but take them out, right?
No,
that never came up.
If you shoot at us and miss, we're not going to shoot back and miss.
Yeah, exactly. But the death toll would look higher, and so if your view of this hierarchy is just, no, Western world bad, it's, look, Josh wasn't killed, and he killed 2 people. Yeah, but those people were trying to kill women and children. Yeah, but he killed them, they didn't kill him, therefore he's wrong.
Yeah, just because they weren't successful.
Yes.
In their attempts.
I'm not saying that you killed 2 people. I'm just saying that's what war is.
No, that's a low
it's
count.
Not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be. You don't go into war for proportionate response. You go in to beat the people who are trying to harm you.
Or already did.
Yeah.
In this case. I mean, how would you not be mad? How would you not be upset?
Yeah.
These people can't put themselves in these Jewish shoes. I don't know if those are clogs.
I don't know. Ashkenazi.
Yeah, I don't know. You can't put yourself in their shoes, though. Imagine how angry they are.
Yeah. A proportionate response would be, hey, we're coming in and we're raping all of your people. As many as we can. Now, of course, it wouldn't be proportionate because they have, technology as opposed to shitting and rock. So they'd be far more effective if they wanted to ritualistically rape Gaza, not Hamas. They'd be far more effective if that was their goal. So that also needs to be taken into account when you're looking not only at the claims from the IDF and the claims from Hamas. Again, straight from the horse's mouth. The coverage in the media, any of the instances that have been reported of Jewish rape of Islamic women. They could do it far more effectively if that was a part of their ideology. And we do need to go back and say, hold on a second, why is this always happen? Why has this always happened as you look to the Islamic world when it developed? I mean, huge swaths, historically, were taken over by the Islamic world. And a big part, by the way, Muhammad was a warlord. These aren't outliers.
Do you think that sometimes that permissibleness is a motivation for that war, or for you to go, let's take over these people? Because if we do, then we're allowed to have sex with all of their women and take all of their land, take their stuff.
It's a huge incentive. Yeah, for those people.
Well, depending on the people.
Well, we're talking about people like Hamas.
Yeah,
I meant the
on October 7th,
attractiveness of the.
Oh, sure.
I mean, because if it's if it's like 60-year-old Indian, I just probably.
Yeah, no, exactly.
They got to be telling those guys though before that October 7th attack. They got to be telling them, you got to do this. It's gonna be great. You're gonna get a martyrdom. Plus, also you get to have sex with whoever you want because they're not Muslim,
right? Yeah,
go have fun, kill and rape.
Yeah, that is it.
It makes you wonder if that's why they targeted this festival. I don't think. I mean, maybe this is conjecture, and you guys can fact check me, but I don't know that they just randomly went to that area. I know that the festival was there, and I know that they probably knew that it was there. Maybe it was just a coincidence.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it seems like a pretty open area where the festival was, at least, that they would have to go into the other neighborhoods that were a little further away.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's why they did it.
Yeah, it also explained why their next target was the Gym Shark Conference.
Yeah.
Instagram influencing is low.
Tell you want to say Fat Pride Festival there. You totally
yes, exactly.
You're not getting attacked.
I mean, with that being said, they are looking for slaves, so don't be surprised. He's just throwing his 4 oxes. Look at By the way, we're going to go continue here this conversation on Mug Club today. So if you're watching on Rumble right now, you click that button right there, and you just continue watching seamlessly on Mug Club. Anyone who signs up right now, you get a copy of Beautiful Differences. Don't forget, we have the truck giveaway.
Yeah, so
at CrowderShop.com.
$10,000 cash.
$10,000 cash. Yeah. Every dollar spent gets you 10 entries to win this truck. I know, until we actually give away the truck. Look, we gave away hundreds of thousands of dollars last year at Christmas.
Yeah.
Just so, this is something that we do, and right now we're just doing it with a truck.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the Ford Raptor, but I know people have lost their mind saying it's pretty good. So
yeah, it's a nice truck.
Yeah, maybe I should.
Truck. It's designed for off-roading.
Put one on my tab. Okay. So maybe we'll be here Wednesday night. I have no idea. We'll see you tomorrow.
Go ahead.
What do you have?
I've got a chart on it. So you want to see it?
A chart on what?
A chart on the debate.
A poll.
So
the poll,
Gerald.
It's a poll.
My God, I have an image
Today's
of a
a
poll.
disaster.
I have a chart of a poll. I don't know. I have something that says numbers on it. Will you throw that up on the
It's not going to be that retarded CNN face in a totem pole, is it?
Well, so far we've got it's close.
That's a pretty even split.
Yes, it's 53.8. We're gonna wait. We're gonna give
It's just it messes up our week if we do it. Yeah, there's kind of an effort to fatigue ratio where it ends up being 3 hours, and then we can't do the show the next morning. All of that.
The thing.
We all end up with jaundice. So we'll watch the polls. We'll definitely see you tomorrow. CrowderShop.com truck giveaway, and it's time to go to Mug Club. We'd say piss off YouTube. You're not here, so Rumble. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I had the opportunity today to welcome and speak with one of the world's most outstanding current comedians. Young guy, 28 years old, Matt Wright, who's exploded onto the comedy scene in the last few years. After having put his time in the trenches, he's been working as a comedian in small clubs and so forth. He started when he was 15, so he put in his 10 years before really becoming popular. He's been the subject of a relatively dedicated cancel campaign in recent weeks, and so we had a chance to discuss that, to discuss his witty, fast, brave, and appropriate response to that cancellation, to talk about that sort of thing in more detail, and also to detail out the structure of his new tour and his plans for the future, and why he's doing what he's doing, and what the role of comedy is in the broader world. So, welcome to the conversation. All right, so I've been planning this opening, which I don't usually do, because I like to do things spontaneously, but I have to get this one right. Okay, so you got to help me get this straight. Okay, so now you're a comedian and you got canceled for a domestic assault joke, and then in response to that, instead of apologizing like a good boy, you put up a joke ad site about special needs helmets to protect the people who are offended by you. And now, to get yourself out of trouble, you're going to come on my podcast.
I never
That's
said
your
that.
plan.
I was hoping it would make things way worse. And I'm hoping we can drive sales to that very real website about the helmets.
Yes, anyways, congratulations on
Thank
that.
you very much.
I thought the joke was funny, risky, and funny. And I thought your response was dead on. Like, one of the things I've noticed is that people who are harassed by sensorial-minded nullwits almost always back down and apologize. And then my sense of that is that a mob comes after them first for whatever hypothetical sin they've committed, and then they apologize, and a second mob comes after them for that.
Exactly.
And then they lessen their own character by the false apology, and they embolden these idiot accusers. And so why did you decide, when this blew up around you, and I mean in some ways it's a tempest in a teapot, when this blew up around you, why did you decide to take the strategy that you took? Why weren't you like racked with guilt and apologetic?
Because it's just comedy. I'm just doing what's funny to me. It's never any deeper than that, nor should it be for anybody. I'm saying things that my imagination drums up, that makes me happy, release endorphins in my head, that makes my life happier, and all I do is share those thoughts with other people in hopes that it makes their life easier.
Well, I've been watching what you do on your specials, and you're continually interacting with the audience, which, and correct me if I've got this wrong, I mean, a lot of the comedians that I've spoken to, they spend a lot of time preparing their sets and practicing, but you're doing, it seems to be something that's much more akin to spontaneous wit. And that's a dangerous thing to do, because you could easily be not funny.
Oh, high risk, high reward, yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's also that because you're doing that, you don't have a lot of time to exactly think through what you're going to say, right? I mean, if something strikes you as amusing, you pretty much have to go for it. And if your head's full of censorship-related thoughts, you're going to be not funny in about 15 seconds. So
you have to let the intrusive thoughts win in comedy. You have to. What comes, if you're a naturally funny person, the first thing that comes to your mind should be the funniest thing to you most of the time.
Right, and it has to be the first thing. Yeah, you know, if you're writing a multiple choice test, like, right, if you second guess your intuition about the right answer, you're more likely to be wrong with the second guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that immediate
makes
response.
sense.
Yeah, that immediate response tends to be better. Yeah, well, and it's a weird thing, because that thing that's comical inside you, that's providing you with the intuition for the jokes, it has to be in quick
timing is everything.
Absolutely, it has to be a quick relationship with the audience. Yeah, timing is absolutely everything. You want to say the most pointed thing at exactly the right time. And so, what do you think, or maybe, I don't know if you've thought about it, what do you think is, well, first of all, how broad scale do you think this rebellion against what you said actually is? How many people do you think are behind it, and why do you think it's become such a big deal?
It's probably a few dozen thousand, which sounds like a lot until you remember there's 8 billion people in the world.
Yeah.
And I would say 90% of the small majority that is upset with me doesn't go to comedy shows anyway, or wouldn't vibe with me as a person anyways, which is fine.
Right, they're probably not that funny. I watched a couple of them today on YouTube.
I can imagine.
You know, oh my God, yeah, I mean, they're the sort of people that you just want to, what do you want for them? You want them to spend eternity in hell composed of nothing but people like them talking to them.
Oh, so good. Twitter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly that.
Right.
But that's the thing, is it's like whether you enjoy what I do or not, you don't even have to know it exists. If I'm your problem, if you and I are face to face and you have a problem with my comedy that I tell, that I admit to the world, right? If you just remove yourself from me, if you do something as simple as just turn around, there is an entire planet behind you for you to go explore and live the rest of your life. You don't ever have to think about me. You don't have to talk about me. I don't like screamo heavy metal music. Guess how often I think about it or talk about it? 0% of the time. You just remove yourself from the situation. I see no harm in trying to make people laugh as a general intention.
Yeah, well, I also don't understand exactly from a purely logical perspective what the people who are complaining exactly expect from you, because, and maybe it is that they have no sense of humor, and that's highly likely, or that they're doing something we can talk about, which is gaining some kind of benefit from their complaints, some virtue signaling. I really see that with the men in particular. Well, I know, I really care a lot for women.
I know.
Yeah, it's pretty ugly.
Yeah, I saw one TikTok video who was like, I have a wife and I found this severely disrespectful. I was like, okay, you cuck.
Yeah.
What do
you probably think that's a form of foreplay.
What do you want to get more pussy outside of your wife? Like, chill out. You're already married. She already respects you. What do you
Yeah, well, I used to see when I had demonstrations around me, that used to be more common than now. Well, the worst people I ever saw at those demonstrations weren't the harridan women who were screeching like fishwives, but the men that were hypothetically there to support them. Man, I tell you, I couldn't even look at some of those guys without having a shudder run up my spine. There's almost nothing worse than a man who tries to worm himself in with a group of women by pretending to be more on their side than the women actually are, when their actual motivation is to use that. What was that Gad Saad, the evolutionary psychologist who did this recording? He called that sneaky routine. Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's actually a phrase from evolutionary biology. I'll tell you a funny story that goes along with that. It's hilarious. and so telling. So primatologists who studied orangutans figured out a long time ago that there are two variant male types of orangutan. Okay, so there's like, orangutans tend to hang around in trees, they're arboreal, but the males who become dominant in a given territory get so large, sort of like a linebacker in football, and they have these big fat pads around their face that are circular. They get so large they can't really go in trees anymore. And the females come to them. But then there are other males in the vicinity for who the primatologists thought were adolescents for a very long time, because they look like adolescent males and they hang around in the trees. But they turn out to be, many of them, fully mature males whose development into the linebacker is forestalled by the fact that they're not at the top of the pecking order. Right, and so their strategy is sneaky rape. Right. So it doesn't take much of an imagination to map that onto the, the feminist male who's so on the side of women that, he gets to be the friend who can entice some poor girl into bed when she's at her lowest point.
So it's almost like their own insecurity and lack of manhood. Manhood probably isn't the best word to use, but it stunts their own evolution.
Well, it requires that they take a different pathway to mating success. They can't use dominance. Right.
So pathetic.
Yeah. So why did you decide to come on my podcast?
I'm a huge fan, man.
I find you.
Listen, you and I have never met. I'll be truthfully honest. I haven't done extensive research into everything you've done, but I find you to be a very kind man and very well-spoken and someone who stands on their morals and the realism of society today. And I think that is incredibly rare, and I just highly appreciate you.
Oh, well, thank you. I wasn't fishing for compliments, but I do appreciate the fact that they emerged. Well, I'm curious partly, too, because I think it's fair to say that your primary fan base is women. I mean, I'm not certain of that, but it is the case. Okay, and is it almost always women that you interact with in the crowd?
No, not at all. It's total luck of the draw, whatever happens. I mean, women yell out the most, for sure. Like, they'll heckle the most, so that will draw more adamant crowd work, like that I didn't necessarily intend on doing. But overall, no, it's just luck of the draw.
Is that something that's particularly characteristic of your shows? Because I would think,
Oh, it's
that's
bad.
Well,
I've kind of created my own crowd work monster in a way. A friend of mine put this in perspective for me. If I got popular from doing crowd work, which was a very specific strategy, I only post my crowd work because I don't feel like burning through material. Comics build for minimum a year, 2, 3 years to build an hour-long show, right? I would feel like a total piece of shit if I let you pay money to come see the exact same material you just saw for free online. So crowd work being a very unique circumstance that really isn't to be duplicated at any other show that you do, because you're not going to meet the same person who's been through the same circumstance, has the same story to tell, right? So this is a very unique thing that you could share, and it doesn't burn through any of the material at all.
So that's why you've been making specials on YouTube out of crowd work.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because you can make them permanent, and you said it doesn't interfere with the novelty of a prepared show.
Yes.
So you do prepared material as well.
Yeah, I have 2 full specials on YouTube that are fully
so
material.
I've only seen the crowd work.
Oh, you watched the red flags?
Yeah.
So I specifically did that special because I was getting